Are you recently out of a relationship with a dismissive avoidant or fearful avoidant attachment style? And out of the blue, they emerged back into your life? Maybe this was through a text message or even a late night phone call. And all of a sudden, you're asking yourself the important question: should I get back together with this person? What's the right decision? Well, in today's video, we are going to talk about why these attachment styles may reemerge, and we're going to talk about the really important concepts to help ourselves discover whether or not we should get back together with an ex. And I'm actually going to be talking a little bit about a fantastic book authored by Dr. Henry Cloud and John Townsend, all about safe people and how to know if somebody is actually emotionally safe to be investing in. My goal for you is that by the end of this video, you're going to walk away understanding why your avoidant ex may have reemerged. Also, understanding the differences between dating somebody because they're a really good fit for you in reality versus fantasy, and some really important components. And we're really going to cover about 8 core crucial traits about whether somebody is safe or emotionally unsafe. And it will be through that you can vet whether or not you should stick around. So, first and foremost, why do avoidants come back? Well, avoidants don't always come back because they're ready for a relationship again. Sometimes they come back because they miss you and they still have feelings, but that is a very separate thing from somebody missing you, having feelings, and being ready to invest back in a relationship, let alone do the heavy lifting and the hard work to make the relationship work and to not end up back at square one. And there's this really important concept that I talk about a lot inside our personal development school programs and in our webinars, but probably not enough here on this channel. And it's this idea of vetting. You see, a lot of times when we start dating somebody or when we have a recent ex, oftentimes we're in a position where we are attaching more to the fantasy of a person or the imagined future potential of somebody rather than vetting a person themselves. If you've ever been in the position where you tell yourself they might change, things could be different the longer we're in a relationship, eventually they'll come around when they see who I am and they fall in love with me, especially if it's on these really important core concepts or non negotiables in relationships. Well, if you find yourself telling yourself that story, then chances are you are dating somebody's potential or the fantasy of a person rather than the reality of who that person is. And this is a really meaningful topic before we go into these 8 core qualities to look out for when we're vetting somebody to see if it's actually worthwhile to reinvest in them. And we need to make sure that when we are thinking of bringing somebody back into our lives, number one, they don't have these 8 qualities, but number two, that you are actually making sure to fine tune your decision making based on their actions and not their words. You see, sometimes somebody comes back from the past and they say, I'd love to be back together with you. I miss you. And they can say all the perfect things. But honestly, that doesn't really make a huge impact. At the end of the day, we need to be deciding if we're going to invest in a person based on how they are showing up in their behaviors, not what they tell you with their words. And that is the most important thing to be paying attention to so that we don't end up getting back together with an ex who's not willing to change their patterns or behaviors. And so we end up back where we don't want to be, which is round 2 of a fresh breakup. So I'm going to go through here 8 crucial things that you can look out for when considering getting back together with somebody. And this is not necessarily pertinent to a specific attachment style. It can really be for any attachment style. But if we do have an avoidant ex reemerge, you do need to be on the lookout for these 8 things. And we need to be vetting accordingly. If we see any of these things, we need to be addressing them head on, having healthy discussions so that we don't see these patterns continue on. And that's where we're vetting for their actions, not their words. Okay. So, number one, people who are not willing to admit weaknesses. Okay. And sometimes you will see this from an avoidant attachment style. And generally, this is a bit of a deal breaker when it comes to getting back together with an ex, because if somebody can't admit their side of things, it's very difficult to have two-way accountability and then to see the ability for the evolution of the relationship out of what led it to breaking up in the first place and into something that is likely to keep you together. Number two, if somebody is really defensive and they're not really open to feedback, if somebody is not open to feedback, then it's really hard to communicate. And you can actually, as we go through these 8 things, check in with yourself too and make sure that you're doing these things because these are really important qualities and traits to have in a relationship between two people to make sure that the relationship can keep growing. Number three, if somebody apologizes but doesn't change their behavior, this is something that is of the utmost importance. This goes back to this core concept where we need to, if we're considering getting back together with an ex, look at their actions and not their words. Number four, if somebody is avoiding working on problems rather than dealing with them head on, and I love that this is a part of this discussion with Dr. Henry Cloud and John Townsend, because when we look at this dynamic of not being willing to work on problems and just kind of putting them on the back burner. This, as you know, may be something that's more correlated to having an avoidant attachment style. And again, you need to then be asking yourself, am I okay getting back together with this person, assuming their behaviors do not change if I'm seeing that this is a part of how this person tends to show up? Number five, and this is less so associated with an avoidant attachment style, but I think it's a really important thing to keep in mind. If somebody after a breakup is trying to demand your trust rather than be willing to work for trust, and trust doesn't just have to be centered around these really obvious things like cheating or infidelity. Trust can be around white lying. Trust can be around respecting boundaries or working to trust that each of you will be more consistent in your communication in a relationship. And it's okay if you're thinking of getting back together with an ex to say, "Hey, if I'm missing that consistency from you, I want us to work towards that and I need to see in your actions that we're willing to work on that and improve that together." And it's healthy for you to work to see if that trust can be earned. That's what vetting is. And when we get back together with an ex, it really means we're restarting the dating stage of a relationship again. It shouldn't be that we hang out for a week or two and we just jump right back into a relationship. We need to see, is this person actually doing the work to be ready and health for a healthy relationship? Number six, if a person is not taking responsibility because they often blame others or external events. And again, this isn't necessarily just correlated with dismissive avoidance and fearful avoidance. We can see this with all attachment styles, but this is something that we should be vetting for. If somebody's in a position where they continuously are avoiding responsibility and they're kind of blaming external events rather than saying, hey, maybe the external event affected me, but at the same time, I am still accountable for my behavior at the end of the day. Things like, oh, I was stressed, and so that's why I stopped calling you back and making an effort. Or, oh, I was stressed, and so that's why I became passive aggressive or really critical with my words, as if the stress gives somebody this hall pass for how they show up. I think it's really important for us to acknowledge our stress and also have compassion for that stress, but still make sure that we're able to say, you know what, I was stressed. That was the wrong decision. I wish that I didn't communicate in that way. And I'm still going to work towards improving and evolving beyond that. And that's where we're really looking to see if this person's actions, again, are lining up with these things. We have two more really important ones that I want to go through, which are if somebody is not growing or not willing to grow. I think that a relationship, if we don't have two people growing, and we tend to have one person growing, and I'm going to take a big guess that if you are here on this channel right now, you're probably somebody who's growing and cares about personal growth. And if both people are not growing, then instead of growing together, if only one person is growing, you're going to grow apart. And I think it's really important for us to acknowledge the importance of growth, and growth happens through introspection, communication, curiosity, and vulnerability in our relationships. And that's extremely meaningful for a relationship to really work. And last but not least, before I dive into this last one, I just want to say if you want to do a deeper dive into a course we have called How to Repair Any Relationship, you can check it out fully for free just for a limited time. You can come in, ask me questions one on one. I'm in there 3 days a week. We have events basically every day that are live where you can get your questions answered. We have peer support groups in there, all sorts of helpful resources on your path to becoming securely attached or just working through any of our courses in particular. So I'll put the link specifically to the How to Repair Any Relationship course beneath the free trial. And last but not least, if somebody lies instead of telling the truth. I think this is a really important core concept for relationships. Of course, this is something discussed all the time, but I can't stress enough, if we are getting back together with somebody from the past, we need to be able to trust, to make sure that that person's emotionally safe, that it makes sense for us to invest in them because they are an investable person. If you imagine the analogy of a stock, you don't want to invest in a stock that's on the decline or that's unhealthy, because obviously you're going to be losing your money. And by that same time, we have a currency of our emotional bandwidth, and where we invest that emotional currency will determine a lot about our emotional state and our happiness. And we need to be investing in emotionally safe people and healthy people. And when we see that there are these traits or qualities or characteristics in somebody from the past and are thinking of getting back together with them, these are definitely red flags to watch out for. So hopefully this made a whole lot of sense to you today. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Also, if you saw some of these characteristics in yourself or in somebody else, please share in the comments down below. I'd love to hear what you've seen and how this has impacted you. Thank you for stopping by, and can't wait to see you in the next video.